Welcome back. This is another episode of the Maturity Project. A little bit different format today. I'm your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears. To some of you know, and or Chad Everett Broshears to the rest. And it's my buddy Joey. I'll let Joey just kind of introduce himself. I'll talk a little bit about how the format will flow, and then we'll get right into the subjects here.
So. My name is Joe Dipaola. Born and raised here in Florida. Known Chad for a while now. Used to work out at the same gym together. Yeah, that's pretty much me. Local business owner, just your average Joe, if you will.
No pun, right? All right. So as you guys know that have been watching the videos and following, I'll talk about 8 different areas of maturity because that's what the Maturity Project's about, and try to get in depth about those things. So Joey and I are going to talk a little bit about what it's like just to be alive and what it's like to be Joey, and then some of the things he's gone through, and challenging moments, if we can find any that really want to talk about that. We can address the 8 different areas of maturity and how we navigated it, what we made meaning out of it, and how we live from that point forward with the meaning that we made at that time in our life. Absolutely. And how it still affects us now. So yeah, we can get right into it. So
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So with the 8 different areas, I know we discussed it before. It's easy to really kind of recap it, but at the same time, the reason why I came up with 8 areas, I created the education, and still building it and creating it with a bunch of, as people come along. The 8 different areas, it struck me one day when I was at a coffee shop, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, why is it there's so many people have so many problems, but yet we meet people that seem so well put together. And then I thought about a story that I'd heard about this very powerful 30-something-year-old attorney, female, and he's had just like this picturesque life. The next thing you know, it's like she found out her husband was having an affair.
Right.
And if you went by just that event and watched what she did after, and not with the expectation outside of, what you would expect her to do,
right,
it would leave you with she's a person and acted immature. But because she's this high-powered, well-developed attorney, her actions that followed that realization, a realization that her husband had an affair, she did all kinds of things that were incredibly childlike, like keying his vehicle, sugar in the gas tank kind of stuff, and defaming his character to as many people are willing to listen, and, all of that. And I'm like, well, how is it she's got so much accomplished in life, but yet hearing that story seemed to change my credibility for her to some degree?
She's just mature in different areas.
Exactly. And that's where the maturity program was born, is I'm like, now I got to start breaking down what it's like to be a human being from a maturity perspective, so that, because it's an immaturity. Well, how do you deal with an immaturity? Tell people they're immature, move on, and start forcing information at them, or go, there's a timeline in your life. You had a conflict that occurred similar to this, and the authorities that were involved in your life, the people that gave you foundational support, and your own aptitude based off what you've experienced in life, made you go never again, and then lock that away way back in their history. So they're not going to address it. They're going to hide from it as much as possible, because it's the avoidance model of conflict.
Yeah.
Why should I have to? And the stronger they get in certain areas, the more they hide behind that strength, and then focus on the strengths and just try to keep everybody else from ever realizing that they have weaknesses.
Yeah.
But it's not consciously available to most people. That's the subconscious behavior.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And our society doesn't support us to grow. Our society supports us to become more a victim, because that helps with marketing and sales.
100%.
You don't have this, but we do. But how do you get people to realize they have weaknesses? And then they start that sales approach, which is, you buy my product, therefore, because marketing and sales has so much to do with the way our society functions.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's the want for change too. Like if you don't want to change, you're never going to change. It's like you bring a horse to water, you can't make it drink. The trick is, how do you make it thirsty?
Yeah.
And it's got to want it enough. And that's kind of the point that I got to in life was, I want to be, X, but I need to do, A, B, C, D, E, F, through to get there finally one day. And so it was just that want for change in my mindset and my personality, my emotional state, my, overall mental state throughout the day, stuff like that. So I think it doesn't take a special person. It just takes the person to want it enough to be able to grow into something like that. So,
yeah, I usually liken that to smoking. Yeah. For people that you won't stop until you want to stop.
Yeah.
So most people aren't going to stop just because they're told they should.
Yeah.
Oh, hell, how many commercials do we have, and how many doctors tell their patients you got to stop smoking? It's negatively impacting your health.
Yeah.
And they wait till they hear that it's too late before they really try to take action. And it's not everybody all inclusive. It's just, where do you fall on that spectrum of action? So we have that. It's where our society is.
Yeah.
We're also taught that if you're weak about something, you should probably hide it.
Yeah. I feel like that's the way that society pushes people nowadays. And
especially men.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was what I was going to say next, is especially men, is it's, don't cry about it, suck it up, move on. And, at the end of the day, like, emotions are emotions.
Yeah.
Whether it's a man or a woman, we all experience the same kinds of emotions, just maybe to different extremes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I'm an emotional person, but I try not to hide my emotions anymore. Like, if I'm sad, hey, I'm sad. If I'm mad, contain the outbursts, but it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be happy, stuff like that. So
yeah, it's a beautiful thing actually about being more open and willing to experience life.
Yeah.
And so far in this is just more of this is like a sample of how the conversation will go, and as it already has started. But the next part of this, because this is intended to be a 2-part series, or a 2-part episode, not series, but an episode. The series will be that. This is the sober version of the conversation,
right?
Where we're going to discuss it and just let the intellectual process and the curiosities and the way that we communicate all take its dominance without the influence of any alcohol or whatever other substances, right? So the second part of this will be the same subject, and we'll see how our perspectives shift, and we'll work on, kind of exploring in a different way what those conversations are like, but under the influence. Because a lot of people in life will go through different phases and they have coping mechanisms in that. And this is to give the thought process associated with the chemical influence, but trying to remove the coping mechanism portion of it.
Yeah.
But to show the benefit if you decide to choose a different way of dealing with those things. And then you can actually free yourself of the chains of a coping mechanism.
Right.
So, so that's it for the way that we're going to do this conversation. And it's, for me, when we get a subject piece, we're going to want to talk more about the best way to build the 8 different areas of maturity and how we came to that conclusion, and what can we do to change it for the future.
Right.
I recently started talking about something, and it was one of my recent videos on here, that was about the 3 different models of conflict, like how people handle conflict.
Okay.
One model of handling conflict is avoidance. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to go there. What happens with the avoidance model, and actually let me do this, it's avoidance. Then you have survival, the survival model to conflict. And then you have the thriving model to conflict. Each one of them come with their own cost and benefits.
Of course.
So the avoidance method is something that's typically in a very immature state in life, and that you didn't really get developed in a way that you can overcome avoidance.
Right.
You were just developed enough to avoid things that you don't like, that you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
That particular model, in my opinion, also increases anxiety for people, which puts them closer to the continuous anxiety that can be, a general anxiety disorder or more. Although, again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not diagnosing anybody, just talking about from my general curiosities and studies. So we have that comes out of avoidance. The thing about it is that yesterday's problem will come back for the person that avoids how to deal with the problem.
100%.
It won't go away, but as life continues to develop around them and they have their other areas they're willing to strengthen themselves and not avoid, then they get to a point where the baseline of their regular function and maturity is they're good in these other places, but that one thing is the place that sucks, and they'll avoid it. Could be relationships. You know what? I'm going to work on business. I'm going to work on my current family that's not direct, but my brothers, sisters, but not my child. Not, there's a lot of different things in that I'm willing to do in the community aspect of maturity.
Right.
I'm willing to spend time with all these people, but as soon as the community meets emotion and the point of intimacy for emotional connection, that's the other part of another maturity is intimacy. Emotion, which intimacy is in, and intimacy also gets into the sexuality portion, which is they're connected, right? And it's like, well, you know what? I would rather spend my time with friends and family, and I'm going to avoid this, because some people do that. They go years without a partner, and how much of your life are you missing when you do that? You're focusing on something else because you don't have the proper training and conditioning or understanding of how to deal with the emotional relationship challenges, getting into them, finding the quality person. If you spend your life going around waiting to find the right person and you don't practice being you with other people,
you'll never find
that right person's likely never going to show up because you haven't developed like they did. I mean, sure, they may show up immature as well.
Right.
And the likelihood that it's going to be a cohesive bond long term is pretty low. because there's going to be all kinds of things when that part feels satiated that are going to come up, and challenges that will influence a relationship. But if they don't know how to deal with conflict, they're going to try to avoid that. And if they can't avoid that, then they avoid each other.
That's why dating is a thing. It allows you to see the playing field and see, you're not going to find the perfect person, because the perfect person doesn't exist. Maybe in your eyes they do, but like there's going to be good and bad. And it's just like, okay, does the good for this person outweigh the bad? If so, then maybe that's an idea of what perfect should be. So I agree.
Yeah. And that's how the maturity program works, is to help bring these things up so you can start assessing for yourself. Because if you don't have clarity about something, or you don't have some insights, you have ignorance. And unfortunately, ignorance has us do a lot of crazy things, including not experience life.
Right.
I'm afraid of that. What's on the other side? Your fear is stopping you from experiencing something.
Right.
The thing about the boogeyman behind the door at night, when you're in your bedroom and you don't want the closet door to come open with the boogeyman, the fear is that there's something that's going to create such a detrimental experience for you that you might die.
Right.
If that thing comes out. So you're scared as can be about that.
Do you know who Alex Hormozy is?
Yeah.
Okay. So he talks about fear, and he says that fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. I believe it's him that talks about that as well.
Why not?
And so you have this idea of fear, and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. But then as soon as you start to step into it, you realize, oh, well, I can keep walking. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, you just get through it, basically. So yeah. That's one way to conquer fear, is just do it. Immerse yourself in it, and then next thing you know, you look back and you're like, oh, okay, well, that was nothing. That was easy. And so that's, for me personally, that's how I've tried to look at fear in every aspect of my life, is like, okay, I see it, I understand it, there's a risk, just do it. And if it doesn't work out, okay, you learned. And if it does work out, well, then good, you conquered a fear. Like, you got through it. So
how fascinating is that? Like, that's what awareness does for us. Because as soon as you're aware of the boogeyman, you can start working on taking the boogeyman apart.
Right.
But if you don't know the boogeyman is there, but you're afraid, or you just know that it is something, but you avoid it, you can't take it apart.
Right.
Right. What does it take to get out of your bed to go open the door to see if there's a boogeyman in there? That's courage.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're not taught courage by some people. Like, we're reducing that. And courage typically comes, now it's both masculine and feminine, but courage is more commonly taught through the masculine.
Yes.
The soldier and the wartime things are the courage conversations, not the address your insecurities. That's courage too.
Right.
And an insecurity could be my safety physical, so with this is the 8 different areas in this is you have your physical body. Okay. That's a physical maturity.
Right.
You have your community, right? And the community starts off when you're born. You have people in the room. They may not be long-term community, but that is community you're born into.
Yes.
And then the attachment to, not the attachment to, but the living into a community that is truly your community, not just a community, but your community comes from your parents initially, or whoever your guardians or your caretakers are.
Right.
They're your immediate community, because of you having an intimate bond with them, being their child, or what their custodianship is associated with. So they have a caretaker side that's to devote to take care of you. That is a community piece. You get your relationships with your siblings if you have brothers and sisters, but they're a community piece too as well. But it's very familiar. It's your family. So then you have intellectual, or the cognitive is what I refer to it as, cognitive maturity. That's our ability to learn and develop ourselves.
Right.
And you can develop this. I mean, you may have genetic predispositions or some sort of a birth defect or something that may have a restriction, but that doesn't mean you can't grow there.
100%. I've done it.
Yeah, right. ADD or ADHD or dyslexia, which I would have been diagnosed that if I had actually had my parents take me to get it done. But I don't care, and I don't let it hold me back. If anything, it's created new strengths for me because of practicing those skills. So we have our intellectual abilities to develop ourselves. And then the forward is, the front part of that is what you learn today in your cognitive functions can become tomorrow's subconscious foundation.
100%.
But that typically starts much younger. And most of us don't do the work to start leveling off that foundation, that ground, to be successful in the cognitive thinking. So you get hijacked easier because you have unaddressed issues that you've dealt with.
Right.
I don't like using the word trauma, because the way people like to associate trauma is that
perceptive.
but it's also victim association.
Yes.
You've been traumatized.
Right.
And when you create that, it doesn't mean people have not been traumatized. But what it means is if the person accepts that as a package of a trauma, they don't have too much workability. They have the ability to survive it, not thrive from it.
Correct.
because me being, I had social anxiety as a child, and it got real bad when I got into my teen years to the point of panic attacks, and the world was closing in on me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have made new friends. You and I wouldn't have been friends,
Right.
unless we had anchors that got us to that point. Like I had somebody I knew that knew you, and maybe the three of us started talking. I got over that in my 20s is about the timeline I got the right tools for it, but I had to develop that. That was my interface with community plus understanding who I was, and then other things, so the cognitive features of maturity. There's more to it, and I don't want to package that necessarily, keep skipping the different types of maturity or areas. So we have our emotional maturity that and again, none of these, this isn't like it has to be, one is physical and two is community and then three is intellectual or cognitive. Doesn't even have to do that. I just do it because it seems to be a good way of giving people a chronological order to our exposure to it. But it's not required. You can have any one of the 8 areas aligned however you like them to be. So then you go to the emotional side, because we start feeling emotions at some point in time. The category of emotion is one of the most challenging to find mentorship in. Everybody wants to mentor each other, but they're basing it on a fairly immature place for a lot of people. What their motives are behind their emotional support, why they're there. Like the whole conversation around beta men, they're there to be supportive because they want to show and demonstrate their virtues of being supportive. Therefore, they're the right guy. The girl gets with them, doesn't like the excitement because they don't really have as much of it. They're just more supportive. Then they later get bored with that person, kind of thing, right? There's an entire conversation I have around dating, which is fun, but it's very big. But anyway, so the emotional stuff, it's easy there. But we also have emotion with the way we feel about ourselves. We have emotion with the way we feel about our community and who we are. Also, when you meet somebody and you show them who you are by how you be and what you say and all of that, and then you find out from other people the way they described you is different. That's a maturity in community. Right. But it's how you express yourself and confirm they're experiencing you in such a way. But that's a communication series of conversations. But also self-awareness, because communication requires you know who you are in order to be able to perceive somebody else. So you have your emotions. Then you have finance, because typically kids get it. A lot of kids get allowances. If you just give your kid money, you're not going to teach them a discipline of maturity around money. Correct. It's just every Friday or whenever you give it to them, they have money. Give them chores and things like that. You associate effort to the earnings of money, and they can create a better maturity than to just give it to them. There's a lot more to that, and I'm going to write a book on it actually about the way I'm raising my son and the way we deal with his earnings and the business concepts. But finance is something that you have people that don't have the maturity enough to understand value of money, so they'll spend it before they have it, or whatever. They don't understand investing. They don't understand how that stuff works. A lot of people like those that are immature with money because there's a lot of money to be made off them because they can't hold it themselves. They can't understand its functions and the expectation of return off of it. But finance is an area of maturity, how you deal with your financial self. And then how, when you invest in other things and what you're investing for. And if you have the way of doing the checkpoints on it, you can actually say, this is a good investment. I'm not leveraging out of insecurity. Then you have, business. We all are going to be involved in business some way. You either run your own or you work for somebody, or you're independently wealthy, but you're going to be buying things from businesses. All of those have maturity values to them. And how you work for somebody has a maturity value, and how you understand the organization, your role in it, things like that. In the business yourself, when you run and own one, like is you've got to grow, you got to develop and keep taking on challenges to mature. Scale. Yeah, exactly. Scale yourself up and scale your skill sets, right? Make them scalable. And then there's the independent people that are independently wealthy. Maybe their family has so much money they don't have to work. Well, business commonly associates itself with purpose in life because we're hierarchical. We are hierarchical creatures that require a purpose to help us feel satisfied, that we're contributing to our community, our hierarchy, as well as that we do something to contribute to the long-term hierarchy of this thing and the community of itself. So yeah, that's the business side of it. There's a lot more to it because that's a big conversation. Every one of these are pretty big conversations. Then you have sexuality. And sexuality is usually it's just number 7 out of this, but it's not, again, it doesn't have to be that. Sexuality is not just who you choose to have sex with and what your preferences are. It's how you, when I say is your sexual preferences of actual sex. But there's also the cologne, the types of smells that you like to have, that you wear, the clothing that you have, the way you interact and talk to people, your engagement, your interest you take in other people for purposes of connecting. They all have contribution to sexuality, not exclusivity in that, because community has the other parts of that too. But that's where community and sexuality meet.
Right.
Is where we start associating friendships and relationships of whatever, not just intimacy.
Right.
And when I say not just intimacy, I mean sexual intimacy, because there's other forms of intimacy is not exclusive to sexual.
Agreed.
To be sex, to have sex. God, I'll learn to speak soon. So then we have spirituality, and that's the last of the 8. Spirituality is not about religion for me. Religion can help people get to that the spiritual maturity, but it's not about religion. It's about purpose. Well, I'm going to have to apologize for that. That is my lovely little puppy, Devin. So when it comes to the spiritual side of maturity, it's about purpose again. And what our purpose is also our legacy. What do we have to live into? What kind of purpose drives you? If you don't have much maturity there, typically you're pretty chaotic in every other area,
right?
Because you have nothing that actually helps you give some sort of goal in life. It's like being purposeless is chaos, and that's manifest in their behaviors and overall actions. So maturity and spirituality, again, doesn't have to be through religion, but religion can guide people through it because it's an organized method to give people some sort of purpose.
Right.
But a lot of times it's also giving people a purpose that they're adopting that's bigger than them, that could be the motive of the person that's teaching them, or it could be that their motive is something that's closer to what the book says. When you deal with religion, it's founded in some book, right?
Right.
So it's just organized behavior for societal functions, and there's a lot of that to it. So that's the 8 different areas of maturity. I know that's kind of a lot to take on, and it's really not easy to cover all of those or even much of any of them when you have a conversation like this, but it gives us a point of reference that we could point at and start asking questions that show itself to be kind of a higher degree of interest. So like when you're dealing with that, what was your sexuality in that? When you're dealing with this particular circumstance or situation, we could be talking about business, so there's all kinds of things, right?
Right.
So anyway, I've gone on quite a bit about it. So what's your thoughts so far? And then what would you like to address? Or just get right into a story?
Let's just get right into it. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. So you're running your own business.
Yes.
Okay. You're married, right? I know your wife. She's fantastic, right? You guys are amazing. Yes, you guys are fantastic. I loved your guys' relationship. So with your business, do you mind just tell us a little bit about what your business does, and talk some things about like beginnings and then how it's worked?
Yeah. So it basically started out years ago with my dad, buying rental properties in the historic Kenwood downtown St. Pete area and fixing them up. They were old, 1920s homes, and they needed a lot of work. And so he had guys that he hired, and they started basically just renovating them. Then it turned into, hey, one of his friends, hey, I need this done. And then, another person, word of mouth kind of got around, and then it accidentally just kind of turned into a business. And so I've worked in sales jobs most of my life, and it got to the point where he's trying to retire. He's in his 70s. He's kind of done. His mother, or my mom and him want to, kind of just enjoy life together.
Yeah.
And, travel, do things like that. And so I started doing some marketing for him, and then business started picking up, rather quickly. And so I came on with him, and then basically slowly transitioning to him being completely out of it and me just taking on everything. But yeah, we do home renovations in pretty much the Pinellas County area, Hillsborough County area, stuff like that. So it's fun. Keeps me on my feet. That's for sure.
Yeah, I definitely would say so.
Yeah.
Now, the founding of that too, what's kind of interesting to me is like when somebody comes up with an idea to start something, right? So the need is there.
Right.
So your father had some rental properties he bought, and then a need came out of that, right?
Correct.
So what was the need from when you had those rental properties prior to creating the company that you guys have?
Well, I would say higher cash flow. Obviously, a nicer place equals more rental income, stuff like that. So, and he's somebody that just being a wealthy person for 30 years has I don't want to say an expensive eye for things, but he likes things to look nice. And so, he understood that basically putting money into it was in turn going to allow for higher money to come out of it back into his pocket. So
kind of increasing the living standards for their tenant, for your guys' tenants.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right, which meant that you could show the house and get a higher rent value because they see the value of living there that you invest back into it.
Well, you're also going to get a higher value kind of renter too. So,
yeah, right. You get a different income bracket.
If you're able to charge somebody, just as an example, $2,000 versus somebody that's only willing to pay $700, you're probably going to get a different kind of person coming out of there.
The wear and tear on the home, things like that, and and the way that they affect the community and behaviors. Again, that's maturity based too.
Well, yeah, their levels, their standards for those 8 levels of maturity are going to be different than the $2,000.
Yes. So. Yeah. And that's part of like what I want to do is to help the people that are in that 700 area, but I don't want to neglect anybody that's well above that, you know, as far as what they can earn and what they can afford. It's just that most of us don't have the guidance or anyone to mentor them through those things. That's what this is about. But anyway, so you realized that you needed to, so there was a labor issue, right? Like getting people to do the job, or they'll cost too much or whatever when it came to upgrading the homes.
Yeah. Well, so the house that I grew up in was pretty big. It was like 10,000 square feet, 5 acres in St. Pete. And it was a constant maintenance nightmare. So we had somebody full-time that would maintain the property. And so he was that guy at the time was a part of that initial, rental renovations. And my uncle actually, he had left his job that he'd been with for a long time. Him and his boss had a falling out. So, family working with family, basically. It worked out at the time. So it was my uncle and then the gentleman that had been on payroll basically to maintain the house. They're the ones that initially started doing it. And I mean, yeah, it was expensive. It's still expensive to hire out to do those kinds of things. Like if you have people that understand plumbing, electrical, drywall, flooring, stuff like that, why go pay a company 4 times the amount to do it if you have somebody that'll do it for a little bit less? So.
Yeah. And then also the benefit of having more control over the craftsmanship.
100%.
Right. And not having to argue with another owner that the job wasn't done the way you wanted it. You get more control over it. And then you can go beyond that from your own properties into what you can service other people at and see that there's a market for it. So you can just continue to develop it.
Right.
This is something that, for me, what shows up is that most people get so attached to the beginning of an idea that they'll get into it, then they'll give up after they realize it's changing because it needs to have its own life. It needs to be able to evolve to the circumstances, the economy, and your availability to your own knowledge levels and your shortcomings.
Right.
You get into it, you start realizing those things, and you can either build them and create new ways of functioning there, or you could let it defeat you and just get out of the business, which is what a lot of people do, unfortunately. So you guys adapted and went right into that marketplace because you had a need that also gave you a base level, right? Because you had so many rentals. So therefore you knew that you could keep your guys busy and paid until you got more jobs outside of that.
Yeah. And at the time, this was probably 2011-ish, 2013 time, somewhere in there. So real estate market was completely different, of course. Pricing was different.
Oh yeah.
And so, my dad was just buying properties cash and in Kenwood, which is basically downtown St. Pete, and to be able to put a little bit of money into them versus what they're worth now and the actual rental income that he's able to make off of it. I mean, it would have been dumb not to do it. So it was just keep buying rental properties, and then he did. And then that's when it was like, oh geez, now I have a friend that wants this done, and then I have another friend, and then this friend's friend, and it just like boom, next thing you know, accidentally this turned into an actual business, and where it's like, okay, we're not just servicing ourselves, we're servicing random people essentially. So and it started from no marketing, just word of mouth. So yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about shifting vantage points. Right? You have to do what's necessary to facilitate an initial need.
Correct.
And then shift your vantage point. Now you can have something different, which is the birth of a company that's actually servicing outside of your own needs.
Correct.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand when they start something, especially in the entrepreneurship direction. Life happens, life changes.
Yes, it does.
Same thing whenever you start dating certain people. It's like you see something that you like, you start dating, and you realize who the person is behind it. And that person can start to change you because of the influence they have with you and what you get to see them doing and how you feel that they're more successful in certain places than you are, and then when they need from you, how you are about teaching that because you have something that you're better developed in than they are. Before you know it, you've bonded so much so that you could really go someplace in the development world with each other, more so than just the initial portions that we typically look for in those relationships. So you guys went from, back to that subject, because it's just the way my mind works, and
Same, man.
puts the parameters on this thing. So boundaries. Yeah. So you guys started that, and then so your dad, you said he was pretty well, like fairly wealthy prior to the rental homes.
Yeah, so he was in the casino business. When my mom first met him, he was in the casino business, and he had owned several companies before that and stuff like that. So basically, from his, I would say, maybe late 20s. He was a very well-off person, like a self-made person. It wasn't, he didn't really have anything handed to him. Like he put in the work and he made it. And he was definitely, he was doing very well, to say the least. So.
Well, when you find that thing that's a return on the investment, if your focus on the return is money, then you can really narrow it down to become really good about how to generate money. Most of us just get so convoluted with so much stuff that we just get distracted by that thing that we're supposed to be focused on, or what will help alleviate challenges in our life. And
our system is basically designed to allow you to work for money, not have money work for you. They don't teach that kind of stuff in school. And so, they need to, but they don't, because then we wouldn't have an economy.
Yeah, that's right. So the way it is it's actually kind of lined up perfectly with the way our economy does work, because you don't want everybody being their own, chief, if you will, because you have to have people that do the work.
Of course.
But there would be a lot of people that are missed if we just taught everybody how to invest money. Because there would be the people that that's not an area they have a skill set in. They don't want to develop it. They have no interest in it. You can't reach them in the world of inspiring them to do it in the way that I'd be aware of, but I'm willing to take that challenge on. But, it's just who's going to take out the garbage, who's going to do the things that everybody wants to avoid, who's going to mow the lawn, the things that we pay a service for. Not everybody has the opportunity to be a doctor, but they can be influenced early on by the success of a doctor and the way we view success in life and say, I want to be a doctor. Why? Do you like helping people? Sure. I like money. Because that in the 80s, that was a big influence on me, was, a doctor means validation about success as being an adult, and a lot of us are taught that. So, but if we all went one direction, well, hell, or the investing conversations, everybody was their own business owner. That would be great, but who would do the work? And not a lot of people think business owner, therefore you're working. They think I own it, therefore I don't. I don't have to, which is a false dichotomy. It's a false belief system when it comes to business. Very few people are able to create that. It's the people that lie to get people to buy their products that get people to believe that. Like there are people that are internet sensations, right? Or internet influencers that are on YouTube or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I read 5 books a day. And the person's a bullshit artist. Right? Some people recognize just by me saying that. They're like, I know what you're talking about. I'm no fan of the guy. Now, I do like to study him because he's become successful to a degree, but also his downfall was exactly how he became successful.
I agree.
It's just how long before people realized he was full of shit. So, but those types of business people, and then the areas of maturity, why would you deceive people at that point to become financially successful? You can't tell me that you're faking it that much, you made that much money, that you feel good about yourself,
Right.
And
you're the one that has to sleep with that at night.
Yeah, exactly. And then the relationships you have will be tainted by what you have to be in order to become successful, by the facade you have to put on. People don't love me for me. They love me because of who I tell them I am, or because of what I have. She loves me because I have money. Is that what you taught her? Right? So there's a lot of stuff to get into. So you guys got into that, and the business is going well, back on track again. So the business is going well. You guys now have several employees that were, but you've had several employees when it was just for the
and we've had people kind of come and go. One thing I've noticed just owning a business is it's really hard to find a career employee and not just a paycheck employee. And so, a lot of times in trades, you're going to find more paycheck employees, and that's okay, because that goes back to you're always going to have a need for, X, Y, Z essentially. So, but we've got a couple employees. I am hands-on as much as I can be. Certain things we'll sub out if we need to, but usually it's myself and our other guys.
What comes to mind too is that in that world of everybody should be able to invest, and I agree with it too. It's just you have entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. And you know the difference between the two, correct?
Clarify, but
Okay.
yeah, I think I have a good idea.
So an entrepreneur is more the business owner. They have the idea, they go out and they'll do the work or whatever, but it's more they're the idea person. They're the ones that own the business, CEO types, those kind of people. An entrepreneur is a supporting role that does bring a lot of ingenuity and inventiveness to the business, but they want to work for somebody who has a good, solid vision of the future.
That makes sense.
So that they're still in that what we know about entrepreneurs, but take them out of the CE role and they make amazing COOs.
Right.
And that's where they go. You know, that's where they want to be. It's natural for them. And there's a hierarchy of people, and everybody fits somewhere in that hierarchy. And the thing is, the more we can take ownership where we belong in that hierarchy, the more satisfied we are in life versus thinking you should be some other place in the hierarchy.
Right.
And, you know, aggressively going after that so much so that you get upset when somebody else is there and you're not. And then you make reasons about why they got there, taking advantage, cheating, whatever that it is, because of their own shortcomings. But then that idea becomes contagious. And then before you know it, people are trying to crabs in the bucket each other. You're successful. You did it on being, you know, shitty or cheating or whatever. You know, you're a bad person because you made money. Yeah, because we do unfortunately have that. It's a communist attack against capitalism. But anyway, it's part of the process to get people to convert over to the socialism or capital or communism. And not to go too far into that, but that's where I go economically when those types of behaviors show up. I think about that on an economic level, which is, you know, still that goes to community and business, you know, community finance and business. So there's a lot more to it. There's more, obviously, every area, all 8 areas fall into something economical.
Right.
But anyway, so you guys got to that. You've pretty much taken over the company at this point, or you pretty much run it. You know, your father's taking a little bit more of a back seat, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, at this point, he's just, you know, if I need him just because he's been doing it for so long, then, you know, I'll, you know, hey, can you help me? What do I do here? What do I, you know, what should I say? What should I avoid? Like, how far should I go with this, essentially? But yeah, for the most part, he's taken a back seat. So
nice. And that's also, it's got to have its own degree of, you know, the validation and comfort to know that you can develop yourself where he's not necessarily as influential.
Well, yeah, and I think it's also you know, I believe the universe works in really, really weird ways, and then this just massive like personal growth that I've been on for like the last 6 months to a year, and then how just weirdly he starts to take this back seat. I feel like me really starting to head this is assisting in that personal growth, because it allows me to test myself and, you know, dip my toes into that one inch deep bit of fear that I might have about certain things. And so, because prior when I would look at it, it's like, oh, well, you know, this is a mile wide. I don't know if I can do this. And then when I just dove in, it's like, oh, you're good, man. Like, there'll be some, you know, some hard times, but you just get through it, keep walking. But it's nice.
That's like the boogeyman in the closet, but you're already sitting up in your bed and you're like, oh, I don't want to open that door. I don't want to open that door. But you're like, get up and do it. And then you realize that there's something else there. So I don't know if I can do this. And then you dove in and realized, yes, you can. Yeah,
I feel like fear is definitely a lot of anticipation, because fear is typically something that has not happened yet. Or it's I don't want to say response, it's a reaction to something that is very similar that you've dealt with previously in your life. But more times than not, it's this idea of what could happen in the future. And it's like, why are you wasting your time on something that hasn't happened? And there's a 50% shot. It might not even happen. So,
Gotta love that.
Yeah.
So, all right, we talked a bit about business, and it has interminglings of other areas of maturity, but we started with business. We have 7 others to go through. So you and I met at the gym.
Yes.
And how this ties back into business and all these things really work holistically will sometimes show up when we do the recording. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily fully come together that way, but you can see a human being showing up. You know, so physically, you know, you and I met at the gym. I was working there as a consultant, and you came up and you started the conversation with me. And I had started, my conversation with you is the fact that you're a big guy, you know, mostly, and don't take a insult to this, but by your height to your overall stature. Yes. While you walking up, it's like, Jesus, dude, you know, you're a bit bigger than you are now, but you're still a good sized guy. So that's pretty much how we started. But what was the physical motivator for you that really got you taking care of yourself in a way, going to the gym, making the sacrifices, going through the discomfort, and disciplining yourself enough to get there? What was it that fucking got you going?
So initially, when I was 13 years old, my mom, she's an alcoholic recovered. At the time, when I was 13 years old, she was just fresh in recovery. She's gone to AA. And one of the people she went to AA with, his name's Paul Garfield. He owns a gym down in St. Pete. And so my mom said, oh, you should go with him. And so I went to him back in the Lifestyles fitness days. And that kind of got my interest into it. And for years, I was kind of in and out. Throughout high school, I tried to stay pretty consistent with it. And then afterwards, I just didn't really care too much about it. And then when everything kind of went downhill with my ex and I was 267 pounds overweight, didn't do anything. I was lazy. I sat on the couch. I ordered Uber Eats 4 or 5 times a day. Like, I was the epitome of not giving a shit about my body.
Wow.
And
that's a lot of weight on your frame, man.
It was, and I'm 5'6", man, 267 pounds. That was big. And my license picture is my driver's license picture. I keep that same picture because every time I look at it, I know that I don't ever want to go back to that.
Yeah.
And so when things were going downhill with us, I thought a lot of it was my weight, because she was always a very thin-framed, in shape person. And so I started running just because I was like, okay, maybe it is me. Maybe I'm the problem here. Maybe this is why it's going downhill.
It's taking responsibility.
And so I started, getting active again. And then when I found out she cheated on me, then it was like, okay, well, I know I'm not the problem. I'm going to do this to prove a point to myself and to her. Like, basically, I think that was the subconscious reasoning for it. And it was, I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to die early of some, ridiculous self-inflicted disease, essentially.
Yeah, sadly. Yeah.
And it just got to the point where I was like, no, I want to be the best version of myself that I possibly can. And there were definitely times, and there's still times, where I'll either doubt myself on those things, or I'll say, that it goes back to the fear.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do it, or whatever the case. But I think really a lot of it was, I'm a charismatic person, I would like to think, and I really try to be as humble as I possibly can about things. But I really enjoyed meeting women. Like, I was raised predominantly around women. My mom had a big influence, my cousin, my aunts. And so I just speak well with women. And so as an obese person, I found it very challenging to interact with women comfortably. So a lot of it was also just because of that. And I figured, if I'm going to meet anybody that's worth my time for the rest of my life, I should probably try to get in shape. So that way they can see, okay, he takes himself seriously. He'll take our relationship seriously. So
there you go.
I think a lot of it really stems from my last relationship, though.
Okay.
And this revenge type feeling of how dare you?
Right.
So
I'll show you.
I'll show you.
I'll show you what you're losing out on. Because
100%
shape now.
Yep. Revenge pod type of thing.
And hey, whatever motivates, but the thing is, you don't want it to corrupt, and you haven't been that person.
No.
You transitioned out of that fuel source of frustration
100%.
of being invalidated to wanting to show that you were more than validatable because you were that much better off.
Yeah.
And then what came out of it was you shifted from that. You converted your fuel source for effort out of that. If you're there too long, it ruins you as a person. Well, it changes you as a person. Yeah. I didn't say ruins you, but it changes the person. Your personality becomes more narcissistic.
Yes,
and more likely to go down the track of narcissism. So, and good for you to make that conversion, although it really does seem to resonate well with your personality. You don't seem like you would be that good at being arrogant.
No, I'm not. No. Selfishness has its value in certain aspects.
Yes, it does.
There's times where you need to be selfish, literally just for yourself, and block everything out, and that's okay. But if you hold on to that for too long, you become a dick.
Yeah, you can.
You do.
Yeah.
And I've always been a very selfless person. I'll do anything for anybody, give my shirt off the back. I don't care. I'll give you my last dollar and figure out how to make my car payment tomorrow. I don't care. That's just me. But it wasn't like, oh, fuck, now I'm a selfish person. How do I get out of this? It's just, it just happened. That's just me. Yeah.
Your default state, your constitution as a human being, it supersedes the desire to become arrogant about your efforts.
Yeah.
Because typically that's what arrogance is that your effort is at such a level you feel other people haven't reached that or unwilling to, therefore
Right.
you kind of hold yourself in a higher esteem, the nose up type thing.
Yeah.
You know, okay, so that's, and obviously it's done you well in the process for the relationships, but also lately you've had some challenges with exercise, right? You've been a little challenged in that world.
Yeah, I got married 2 years ago, and then I got lazy. Dude.
Yeah,
I did. Like I don't want to, you know, I'm really big on self accountability at this point in my life, so I can't point finger at anything. Yeah. At the end of the day, the reason I don't work out is because of whatever it is that I am dealing with internally or my decision. So I just got lazy, and I think my priorities were different, and you know, it was go to work, come home, play video games. Yeah, and it's like my time can be better used.
Right. So, well, you also had physical energy for it.
Yeah.
Your priorities have shifted as well.
100%.
Right. Where you're focusing on right now to make, earn your business is that's kind of almost on autopilot for the business itself, and the level of how much more effort can you put into it to grow it. It's doing well as it is. Yeah. You know, but your interests are now weaning there when it comes to the challenge that work presents, right. And you're looking at other options, right?
100%. Yeah.
So the physical energy that was necessary with your cognitive focus, your focus levels, right? You've just converted that into another area. So for me, it's a little. I don't like the term that you use on that, laziness. For you specifically in the circumstances, I don't really think it's laziness. I think that what you're not realizing is that you've taken energy from your physical well-being and the working out and what's necessary for you to stay at that level you and I are familiar with you being at, and you've rediverted it into a new business venture, and that you're dealing with things in another place that you're just converting that energy into that.
Well, yeah, of course.
And you're using your discipline as a way of chastising yourself by using the word lazy.
Yeah, and so when I say lazy, it's because the way that I view life is, okay, you have 24 hours in a day, average person, I guess, on a good day sleeps 8 hours. So you have 16 hours left. Use it all. Yeah. Why not?
Yes.
And so the way that I was using it, with my viewpoint now, if it's not helping me grow, whether that be financially or personally, then I'm being lazy. Yeah. That's just my view. That's how I justify it, to keep that motivation and initiative to go. That's just me though. Everyone's different.
I like it. No, but that is true. Everybody's different, but why are they different? And in what ways can you understand their differences so that you can better manage yourself with them? Instead of going, that person's an asshole. Well, categorically, you put them in a position of undesirable. Right. But why? What accumulated to get to the point of that category's title? Right. Because also if you tell me somebody's an asshole, if I don't take enough time to put myself in check to go, why? And what was the measurement you put them there, and the circumstances that you decided that, and the circumstances that that they were under, the best that you do. Right. I'm not doing anybody any service, and I may create an avoidance method because I want to avoid assholes. Right. Right. That's a default place for a lot of us.
Yeah, of course.
So that's a great way of looking at things when it comes to that, in my opinion, is to stop the category enough to understand the definitions and the details that got the person put in that category in the first place. Because what we do then is we just hold off to, we put ourselves in tribal places where I like Joey or Joe, whichever, I call him Joey, but
just
anyway,
Joseph, I guess.
Yeah. So we put people into these categories, and because of our tribal affiliation, our group-based affiliation, we like each other for the reasons that we like each other. You say as an asshole, I trust that judgment, and therefore I allow that category's title to be put on that person, and now I'm more likely to avoid them because I don't have time for assholes. Right? Is what most people would say. I also am moving at such a velocity that I have to be careful with the people that slow that down by specific things they over attribute in the maturity factors that get sticky, and they can really slow me down in the process, especially if I need to generate more money right now. I need to focus on generating more money, not focus on other aspects of maturity that, if I neglect the financial side to pay my bills or whatever that is, that's going to disrupt my life and make life really hard to focus. So I can't take too much energy away from that to focus on these other things. You've taken energy away from the physical body in order to focus on the other things, and you put yourself in the category of lazy, although again, you're not overly chastising yourself, but I'm sure there's subconscious levels of not being where you really feel best.
Oh, 100%.
And to put yourself back on the right track, you use lazy to chastise to a degree, right? So you want to get back on that level. Efficiency allows us more energy, because what we did yesterday when we're fishing at today takes us less resources to do what we did yesterday because of the pattern association, affiliation, understanding necessary to be successful here, and the enrollment of other people that have been involved reduces your energy levels necessary, and then you can allocate that elsewhere.
Right.
Because just like our time, our energy also has a specific budget. So we spread this out across the different areas of life. So your physical body, you're redirected. Now, we can directly go into community to see how that's associated with what's going on with your body and also where you're placed in the world of community. All right. So how would you associate the community elements in your relationships with people and how the world knows about who Joey is?
So for me right now, I'm so focused that I almost will pretty much block anybody out that doesn't do what I do. And that sounds, I don't know, maybe that sounds pretty douchey, but I don't mean it in that way. It goes back to that, look, if it's not assisting me at the moment and my goals, then I can't stay around it. You're going to be most like the people you surround yourself with. You stay in a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. If you hang out with people that don't take care of themselves long enough, you're probably not going to take care of yourself unless you have some wicked discipline, which a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, like I've kind of blocked a lot of people out, or I've pulled back on a lot of people. I have to be selfish right now for myself. So that way, in the long term, I can do what my goal is. So yeah, I mean, I had a good upbringing. My parents are good. I had a lot of friends in high school, but they were acquaintances. Now that I look back at it, they weren't really like true friends. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of doing it myself. I mean, don't get me wrong. My wife, 100%. Like she's always up for it, and she's back in the gym with me. So that helps me. It's like, all right. And then there's days where she doesn't work out, and it's like, okay, I got to do it anyways. That's fine. Yeah. She can have her off day, but I can't. I just got to do it. So yeah.
Not so much dependent on having a workout buddy, although it helps. But
that's fun. Don't get me wrong.
And then so overall, just with your maturity and community, minus the fact that it's physical, the physical association, but just the community in itself, you're in a phase in your life now that it's not so driven for community as much as it is driven for your own success. So you're giving sacrifice of community for business success, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yep. And it's not to make you wrong in that world. And like you've made yourself wrong by going to the idea that it may be douchey or whatever. The truth is that you reallocated your energy to something else because you only have so much energy to divvy out to the world. And you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of others. You have to, whatever those things you associate value to, that's where that energy gets spent.
Right.
You be shifting away from your community will come at its own cost.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing that I would caution against is the story of Rosebud. The movie is Citizen Kane, and Rosebud was the motivator for him. And so it's an amazing movie. Okay. We don't make movies like this anymore.
It's called Rosebud?
No, it's called Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane.
But Rosebud was the mystery. And it was what motivated him throughout the movie about why he became successful. The premise of the movie, because not a lot of people have seen it because it's an older movie. It predates my birth date, right? When I was born, because it's a black and white type thing. I'm pretty sure it's black and white. But anyway, it's a very early on movie. I think it was in the 60s or whatever.
Classic movies are great.
But it's classic, right? And the timeline that came out is not as important as the lesson of what I'm talking about. So in it, the movie starts off, and it's this incredibly successful man, this uber successful man. And people don't understand why he was successful. Okay. And the scene opens at his deathbed. And he says, Rosebud. Opens his hand, and this little thing rolls out of his hand. And it signifies he's dead, right? And then it goes into his early years. The movie goes to the beginning. Yeah. And then it tells you the story of how he became this successful person. But you don't know what Rosebud is. You do, but you don't. They tell you. But you don't necessarily realize it. So it's what motivated him the entire lifetime to become successful. He was chasing this thing that he had an experience of as a child. And Rosebud was his child experience. I won't blow the mystery. I'd rather people hold on to the mystery.
Yeah, I want to check this movie out.
But it's fantastic. But you just have to get past all of the modern technical advancements and CGI and storytelling, all that. They do an amazing job with storytelling. They create a person that makes you feel connected. That's why I like older movies than I do like newer movies. But I do like movies, kind of 80s and 90s. That's why I grew up, nostalgia benefits and all that. But it's a thing that really drove them. The problem, what I'm pointing at, is that what really drove him isolated him. He was surrounded by people, but the people that were surrounding him weren't in their community connection to bring that fulfillment. They were there because he was successful, not because they loved him for him, because he wasn't able to love them for them, because Rosebud was the thing that he was really attached to.
Yeah, I've definitely, I guess the word friend is also perceptive. Who do you mean, or what do you consider?
Where's the line in the sand between a friend and an associate?
Right. So
an acquaintance.
So I consider you a friend. Yeah. Right. Like, I can talk to you. I can have genuine conversation with you. And, I consider my wife also my friend. Like, a different level of friend, and then my best friend, Mike, is also my neighbor. Like, he is my friend. Other than that, I don't have other friends. I don't want other friends, not for fear of oh gosh, here we go, but my wife watches the Housewives show and it's drama. Yeah. I don't want the drama. So I'm cool with the people that I've got right now, and throughout my business ventures, if I meet more people, that's fine. Good, great, grand, but I'm not going to go out of my way to try to find more friends right now. Yeah. And my friends and my family, they understand, when I stick my mind to something, I'm doing it. It is happening. I don't care what the hell I have to do it, but I'm going to get where I want to go, or get what I want out of it. And, within a line, I'm not going to screw somebody over to, make a buck. That's not my thing. But, so, my best friend, Mike, there's a couple weeks, we're neighbors, literally. I can punch through the wall and hit him in the back of the head. We're neighbors. And so there's a couple weeks where it's I'm so geared and focused on what I'm doing, and I stopped playing video games, so I don't talk to him and his wife every single day now like I did when I was playing video games. And so I'll do my due diligence to reach out and just be like, hey man, look, I just want you to know, I'm not ignoring you guys. I'm really, really focused right now. I love you. Let's get together. So I don't want it to get to the point to where the people that I have chosen to surround myself with get to the point of feeling does he really give a shit about, our friendship? I've known this guy for 10 years, 12 years. I don't want people to think like that. I don't want my wife to think does my husband value, business over his relationship? I don't want that. I want people to just understand where I'm coming from and know that it's for the good. I promise you. I'm not here to cause harm. I'm here to, hopefully make it so y'all don't have to work one day. That's my goal. I want to give back, man. I'm that kind of person. So
to touch on that too, where I want to make it so you don't have to work one day. When you give that much of something, to accumulate that kind of power in life, right? To be able to have the buying power, to not have to work, and that they have the money available. What are you taking away from them by giving them that? And this is what we typically lose sight of, because, wealthy people do this and they wonder why their children don't love them. Or they wonder why their wife would rather go spending money than to sit down at dinner with them. It's like that, right? And I'm not saying you're going to go that route, but that's early on. It comes from the love and the effort, and then as it develops and matures into the direction that finance can bring, without having the community parts and without having the intimacy and relationships, you have the cognitive. Right. Because you're focusing to learn as much as you can to become very good at business. You have the business structure of thinking, and those two things have gotten so much nourishment from you. They're maturing, but they're maturing in narrow avenues, so that they're not holistically robust. Right. And then when you get to that point where you can give these people in your life what are you taking away from their world of suffrage and challenges that give them the benefit of nobody's going to be upset that you're going to make their life financially free. Right. But what challenges are you taking away from them that creates the balanced person you loved in the first place? That now, when that's gone, you're now learning somebody different, and people will be like, well, the relationship ruined this person. But it's the bigger conversation of the details that get there. You're not there, right? I'm not accusing.
No. So I just want to clarify it, please. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correct. Are you saying what challenge am I taking away from that person when that opportunity for me to do that for them arises?
Yeah.
I guess the biggest thing that I would be, I mean, look, everybody has an interest in money. They can sit there and lie and tell you they don't, but they do because they get up and go to work every single day.
Absolutely.
So
they got bills to pay.
Right. And so I think because of the people I've surrounded myself with, I think the biggest challenge I would be taking away from them is the fear of not being able to do, like not being able to pay rent, or not being able to travel and have the experience that they've always wanted to have, or trying to figure out, all right, do I buy food to eat, or do I pay my rent?
Yeah.
Like that kind of challenge, or, do I pay my mortgage, or how am I going to pay my car payment? And so I think that is probably the biggest challenge. That, or also the challenge of feeling like they might not have a purpose in life. Like, and I think everybody has that feeling of like, I'm meant to do something bigger. And I feel like a lack of financial education and just a lack of money in general.
Their financial support.
Is really kind of clouds that idea of, what can I do more of, stuff like that. So I think it would just be I would be taking away the worry. Yeah. That's what I would like to think. And from what I've heard from them, yes, that would be exactly what it is. And like, there's people in my family that, they're not stressing for that kind of thing. I think the other thing for me is I want people to have options. If you want to work, cool, you can work. But I don't want you to have to work. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I could add something to it, it's a very virtuous position that you're after. Like it's on the right now where you are with everybody involved, that's you with your care is associating with the effort and moral position creates that virtue. Right. So you really care that this becomes something better for them. Yeah. The path to hell is paved with good intentions. Right.
Yeah, it is 100%.
And worry is a motivator to change something. It's just if you don't have the structure necessary to change that thing, or a strategy associated with the structure, because you can have a strategy in your mind, but not have a structure to fulfill on it. But your strategy is you've built soft strategies in your mind, but there's no hard support or structure to be successful with it. Right. Then you have first-time intervals and things like that, or the hodgepodge of not having a structure, the discipline with the strategy. So worry is there to help get people's attention to make a difference or change. And if you take away that worry, you can enable them into not being able to progress to something else and create the satisfaction that suffrage brings. The surrendering to a challenge to overcome the challenge, not surrender to the challenge to be defeated by. So again, this isn't me to say that you're doing anything wrong.
No, I understand.
It's the view into the future of the potential outcomes. Right. Because it's one of the greatest challenges I've ever had that has been shared with me from people that are successful financially, business and finance, is that that people in their life don't appreciate what they've done because their method to demonstrate I care about you is to provide for them. But it gets so far apart because perhaps it's not so much the money is the concept of what they're receiving, but they're so mature in business. They know their kids and their wife and the other people in their life that are receiving, the beneficiary of that money, don't understand that the sacrifices that person makes and the decisions they need to make for so many other people, that it's so hard that they separate themselves from their family and say, they just don't get it. I'm just going to give them money. They'll eventually understand. I love them. I'm doing this because I'm supposed to. They help motivate me. And it's this ecosystem that they get developed between the two of them, or all of them, that separates them. And then comes that you don't know what I go through. You can't talk to me now because of this. And not to say that on a bigger, just categorically people do that, where you don't understand what I'm going through. I don't even want to bother talking to you about it because you can't grasp it. Because that comes in that higher level of maturity in that area without balancing everything else out to keep things from getting to that kind of chaos. Right. Because that's a crusader's chaos. Yeah. You don't get me and you can't fucking talk to me about it. I don't care. You are not allowed to talk to me about this because you don't understand what I've been doing with my life in order for you to have what I give you. That's where that can go.
It's very egotistical.
But that's what can happen whenever you don't have the other areas of maturity continuously and the perspective of need to develop. And why would you? if that's what you believe success is how much money you have in your bank account, and you're doing it through the method of learning how to do business and not through gambling, because gambling is harder to do that in my opinion. Some people just have a skill set that works there, but we can strategically learn how to become better business people.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and then moral compass and all the rest of that. So anyway, I don't want to digress too far from you, but that's fine. Where, from what I heard, was the cautionary that came up for me. You're right now in a place of love. You're reciprocating with love. You have friends and all of that are close. What about the people that'll be beneficiaries through them? How many people do you know that have huge trusts that were given to them by a distant family member?
So it's funny you mention that. So my idea of this is, I'm not going to say when manifestation.
Yeah.
When I have the opportunity to do that, it's not going to be, hey, here you go.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No. It's going to be, here's some financial education. This is where the money's going to go into.
Okay.
I want, again, this is my want. My wants, their wants may be different, but if I'm doing it, this is what you're getting. Sorry. Hey.
It's a beautiful thing about a trust is you can put terms on it.
Yeah, and that's what it'll be. It's, I want you to have passive income. I don't want you to have to worry anymore, but you're not going to get a check for, $2 million. This isn't the lotto, because tomorrow you could go turn around and blow it or give it away, and then you're coming back for more. I've seen it happen. It happens with lottery winners all the time.
Absolutely.
Everybody comes out of the cracks, and it's like, I haven't spoken to you in 20 years. No,
you're not my best friend.
Right.
You don't have that investment. We don't have that development of bond.
Right.
We've just known each other because of happenstance, really, at this point.
Right. And the nice thing of the people that, my community, if you will, is they understand. I would like to think, from what I've experienced with them, that they understand money and they understand finance to the extent that they wouldn't be ignorant with it. They understand that there is value to it if you utilize it correct, and that you don't need to work for money. If you have money, and then you can in turn have that money work for you, it actually benefits you more in the long term, in my opinion. And it would be set up in a very specific way, and I would assist in the financial education, because I'm big on teaching people. And in certain areas, some things it's like, my brain doesn't work like that. I can't teach you like this, but finance and business for me it's like, it makes my brain tick. I get excited. It's like video games. I can teach somebody, I can tell you how to play video games all day long. That's fine. I get it. It works for me. So same thing with finance and business, I would like to think. So there would definitely be some stipulations.
Yeah, which is required, right? So we've actually gone from community directly into, we've hit emotion as far as emotional maturity. We can go further into that in a minute. We've got into financial maturity because we're directly talking about that now. How do you actually understand this? We've got into cognitive because you're talking about the growth factors of understanding specific things and how do you get other people to understand it, in a cognitive way, not just an emotional way. We have touched on both business already, and we touched on it again, but now we're also talking again about that financial maturity, which I love is we got all of those into that. Taking away lessons because you give somebody something when they have anxiety, they have worry, that's actually emotional.
Right.
And then it's associated with the boogeyman thing.
Right.
And you're like, I already conquered that boogeyman. Here it is. And now I'm going to give you stipulations on how to overcome that boogeyman yourself.
Right.
That's, again, what I love about trusts is a financial vehicle that does have stipulations that will not allow for if you place those stipulations in place.
When I started trading Forex and started trading in the stock market, Forex especially, because it is a mind game. It is 10% technical, understanding what you're seeing on the screen, candlesticks, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It's 90%, and I would honestly say it's way more than 90%. It's almost like 95 to 99% emotional.
Yeah. Because
you can understand the technical side of things all you want, but if you enter into a trade and all of a sudden you're down $2,000, the human emotion is going to be freak out. Oh my God, let me get out now. And then 10 minutes later, you end up profitable. So it took a lot of training my mind to.
It's emotional patience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Emotional patience.
It's not easy, but yeah. So
yeah. You know, it's great too, because what it keeps coming to mind is this is a subject, I can stay in the subject forever, or the way these 8 different areas work. And I actually do. Always. I just don't tell everybody I'm doing it because not everybody's prepared for that. And that's what this whole thing is about, is to create preparation for these things. So you can teach a way of developing yourself without having necessarily all the mentors in the world, but how to find them and how to figure out where the mentor stops and you need something else, or you can do it yourself, or you can mentor them by different areas of maturity. Cognitively, you're a different person than the average, in my opinion, from my experiences of you. Because what I've heard myself, and not a humble brag or anything, but I've heard a lot in my life that I'm just a very smart person or I'm hyper intelligent.
Same.
I dismiss that, and I don't do it to hurt people because they're tagging me that way or they're titling me that way, to take away what their intent is to give me from them because they see intelligence in my communication or my behavior. I'm curious. I'm highly curious. Curiosity is one of my greatest strengths because it makes me look past myself and to look into other things. And I realize the more curious I am, the less I am attached to who I am at that moment to be defensive whenever somebody else gives me something that I could be defensive about. Not perfect at it. It's a strengthening, maturing thing there. So curiosity is my key to what people recognize what they say is intelligence or smart, that I'm smart. Because I don't want people to say I'm smart to the point that they create separation between me and who they are.
Right.
Because I'm somehow gifted and not worked my way to get here. Right. Curiosity is probably the gift. And even that is something that I've strengthened and had just a small benefit as a child because just the genetics and early conditioning.
Community too.
Yeah, and in my community, I like it. So my curiosity built into that. And then I just started getting really curious about different subjects. And you have a very similar aspect to you, and I think is part of what our bonding is that we have a high degree of curiosity where we don't get defensive in subjects because we don't identify so much with that subject as much as we do about how we got to learn it or understand it.
100%.
And then that makes us bond better.
Yeah.
Where when we meet people that get defensive over things, it kind of turns us off a little bit.
100%.
You know, and it's a strengthening thing and maturity thing on our part to be able to breach that.
Yeah.
Because cool, I get it. Because I envy the people that can sit there whenever there's a high level of conflict, and then they can take themselves out of it and go, I understand why you are where you are to the degree you've expressed it, and I am not so attached to being right now. I would rather understand where you are. Would you say more about that? That gets people to lower the fists to go, oh man, you actually care.
Yeah,
that is such a strength, but you gotta get there. And I'm not even fully there, but I am in certain circumstances that I've worked through. I'm actually getting emotional about it right now. So I'm like, drop the fist. I'm like, oh my God, that's what I want so bad. To get people to drop their proverbial fist, not just their physical.
Yeah, I think for me, people have always said that I'm a very, they trust me. Animals trust me. Kids trust me.
Yeah.
Random strangers trust me. Walk up to me in a store, talk my ear off for 3 hours if I let them.
Yeah.
And I don't have the heart to just be like, shut up.
Well, the shut up in that scenario, is coming from your importance to get someplace.
Yeah. And that's
because the reason why they're doing that is because you're curious and you developed yourself that curiosity. Your body says it.
Oh, it's
your body language. It's your posturing. It's the way the sexuality aspect is with curiosity, which we'll get on that one in a minute. But so it says that and it makes you approachable. Yeah. And then they're confessing things to you. And your ability to receive those confessions, it feels good to them. And that's why they're so aggressive about getting to communicate that with you. Yeah. But you're like, I got Forex trading. I've got what I'm up to. I've got my resource scarcity and I'm not willing to share it with just everybody. And my time is highly precious. And then the defense with those things in alignment come out with, stop doing this to me. And it frustrates you. It creates a different frustration value.
Well, it does. And I think also just because of the kind of person I am, I might internally have that thought of like, oh my God, come on, let's get this. But I also look at it like, this person, and I try to think of a lot of things in extremes because extremes are a reality, whether it's good or bad or in between, whatever. Is, this person might talk my ear off because they felt like they could trust to come and communicate with me. That person might have been 10 minutes away from going home and killing themselves.
Right.
And them being able to have somebody that was very receptive and could understand and relate to them saved their life. Yeah, obviously not everybody's like that, but that's the way that I try to have it because it's like, all right, you can't be selfish in this moment. You can be selfish in your other moments, but if someone really feels a need that they just need to talk, that's fine, whatever. And I will sit there and engage. And even though on the inside, I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'll still do it because, and then I feel good afterwards because it's like, you know what? That ended up being a good conversation. Maybe the timing wasn't to my standard.
Yeah.
But, you know, life's not fair and nothing's always going to happen the way you want it when you want it to. So
yeah,
who cares?
Be grateful for that.
100%. Man.
Be incredibly grateful for that. I am. And I love you for that, by the way.
Thank you.
You're a great dude all the way around. And that's the thing I want people to understand, because when they meet you and you're in that space where, come on, you know, or shut up, let me go. Let me go. Let me move on.
Yeah.
If they do experience you that way, this is how they can get to understand who you are and your motives and why.
Yeah.
And it's not that you are, that there's almost certainly probably not a lot of people that have experienced you that way, but somebody has.
Yeah. That's not to say, come talk to me. If you ever
exactly.
Talk to me.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. But also it's to get people to understand why you would get to that point. Again, that's what my point about this is, really get people to understand why you're there and why other people are there. You know, it's not guaranteed everybody's coming from this because we're all so different. But if you can get to the point where you have that emotional patience because somebody else is in need. By the way, my thing is like, and I love that you're there where you're like, I might actually be able to prevent this person from killing himself.
Yeah. Or whatever, you know, just, it could be anything.
But there could be you know what? Today's interaction could be contributory towards that in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And you may be the one that gives them that glimmer of hope to not go that path of depression that could lead to that. Right. And I mean, like also 10 years from now, it could be the habit that they decide to take on today. Yeah. It takes their health away and they know it and they don't care because they don't have a purpose enough that keeps them to actually say, I need as much life as I can to make this purpose a reality. So I'm not going to purposely take it away from myself. So your contribution today may be contributory long term. That's where I am with it. Every interaction is contributory towards somebody else's long term. And I want to try to create that aspect, that viewpoint that could shift them into getting more of their life goals accomplished in life for fulfillment than to be away from that because of its spirituality, the purpose. And we can get to that now, or we can wait because it's suitable right now because purpose is spirituality for me. If you don't have it, you're going to be in those spaces where you got to interrupt people and say, please listen to me. Please hear me, because no one else does, or so few people do. And I don't feel like I belong to any community. And I'm letting go of everything else because nobody else has helped me understand these things in life right now. Yeah. You know, and I don't have a guide, and I'm begging you, hear me, so maybe you can be my guide, even if it's now. And you're like, you know what? Shut up initially. And then there's stop that. Yeah, because you mean more in life than just what you're going to accomplish financially or whatever the focus is in that moment, because you're a truly good person and you're willing to get out of the way of yourself to be a contributor to their spirituality. Because if they don't have the religion to help associate with purpose for them, they may go to church but not associate purpose. Yeah, they go there just to alleviate guilt or discomfort about something in life, or to feel like they belong to a community, but they're not able to make their religion into a vehicle for purpose.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Like, you know, I married into Greek Orthodoxy, so like if I was going to marry my wife, it was, this is what you're doing, this is what you have to do. If not, that's okay. But if you want to marry me, this is what you got to do. So I'm Greek Orthodox. Woohoo. Yeah. And so, you know, I'm not a super religious person. That's just not my thing. And that's okay. Yeah. I'm, you know, cool. If you want to do it, I'll go, you know, that's fine. For me, it allows me to, it's a good sense of community. That's what it really is, dude. For me, it's like, I know I'm around genuine people for the most part, and they have usually very good intentions. And it's basically just a place for people that have the same belief to all come together. And that's it. Like, so I'm not like, I got to go to church and get my confessions out. No, because I don't confess in church or anything like that. I confess, and I confess to one person, and that's my wife. And if there's anything, it's like, hey, I screwed up. I got to talk to her. That's who I confess to. Church just allows me to disconnect from everything that's going on in my actual life, and for me to sit there and think and like look at things singularly. Like, okay, let's look at this. What do you do that affects this? And so church for me is different than probably most people. I would like to think, but
it's so
I get benefit out of it. Although there's times where it's like, oh, I don't want to go. We go anyways, and then afterwards it's like, man, you know, I'm kind of glad I went. Even if I tuned out what was going on. I was glad I went.
It makes you feel a certain way when you're in a room with other people that are up to something. Their purpose is obvious enough. You know that they're there for some reason that exceeds their own life.
Yeah.
You know, or at least they're there for a purpose to contribute to exceeding their own life. You know, which is the God thing, right? Like to be able to have worship about something like that, or Jesus, or whatever, right? If you're looking at the Christianities, the Christian sects of religion, and Catholicism falls into that. You know, when you will have Catholics that argue that it's Catholicism then Christianity, whichever, doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. I'm not into the righteousness of it. But so I love that because it is, again, purpose, and there's other people with purpose that are there, and it's like revitalizing your sense of purpose in life. It's a place for you to continue to hold a solid foundation in that.
Right.
And if that's the method that works for you, fantastic. Now, I'm not a religious person, but I have a lot of benefits that I find that is in Christianity because of its foundation and how it works with our society in the United States. And I'm not a religious person. I was atheist for a period of time. And I'll tell you that my intellectual, cognitive side was really getting a lot of growth and development whenever I chose atheism, because I gave up some of the things that were the limiters that I had from my earlier childhood that I was raised in a religious structure, Baptist, right? So I moved away from that, and then I got that freedom because I had chains associated with the religious restrictions and that I was taught, and then my atheism gave me that accelerant to become more and more cognitively mature. I will not I am not atheist anymore. I find that it is, it's a place that actually becomes very arrogant and a lot of hypocrites, because they don't understand hypocrite based off of the skills that they're chastising, because the structure that's supporting those skills is religion, and they're like the sheep, blah, 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 is a common thing in the atheist community. And agnostics aren't as aggressive, they're not as jerky typically that the atheists are, because atheists can be fucking jerks. There was times when I was a force you did not want to debate with whenever religion came up, because I would really take apart from a logical perspective what I would develop and what I would debate against religious people. And I would be pulled into arguments on social media because of it, because I was so cognitively mature. And they're not totally mature. I was just more mature than a lot of people around me because of my focal points. I denounce the atheist position.
It's almost a religion of its own.
Oh, it is its own religion. It is. It just doesn't have the formal structure with the tenets that actually are highly beneficial for the patrons of it. It's more of this like herding cats kind of thing. You just give them a reason to show up, which is the can of tuna that's freshly opened.
It's like the belief of not believing.
They go in to attack that thing because there's something structurally sound, and they go after that thing by the pieces that make it seem hypocritical. But they're just riddled with hypocrisy, which is a human condition. We're all hypocrites in that. So I denounced it, and it really came about my denouncing of atheism was during all the stuff that happened in 2020 and all of that stuff with a lot of the Antifa and all these people that run out. The people that associate with atheism are parts of those groups, and the groups that are associated with a lot of atheists, I find that they're easy to destroy a community and easy to destroy a nation. It's easy to mobilize them for those reasons. And that's where their religion, the lack of religion, became their religion, and they became zealots of their atheist position, and then they attacked anything that was associated with structure, which is what Christianity brings to a lot of people's lives, structure. So anyway, I don't want to digress too far, but because that puts the religion into spirituality. But my position is purpose, and my purpose supersedes any particular religion. Is to bring purpose to other people's lives, so that we can coexist and not need to kill each other off because of scarcity and insecurities and all the things that motivate the conflicts that we have. So I'm not after a one world government, by the way. Make sure that's very clear. If I'm going to do a TED talk, you won't catch me up there. I won't do it because that's kind of trash. It's a great modality to get people to be aware of you, and maybe I will do one, but I won't necessarily speak so easily and good about TED Talk itself. But there'd be more thought to go into that if I ever get to that point. But so purpose, and you have a very clear sense of purpose, or at least a clearer sense of purpose. Do you have any big for what you want to be remembered by? Do you have something that would be a legacy that you would want? Because, by the way, to preface this, a legacy is a story of your life that other care to share.
That other what?
Other people care to share. Because that's really what a legacy is. A legacy will impact other people's lives based off of the sharing of your story.
I don't want to just be somebody that can, help the people around me become financially free necessarily. Like, yeah, that's a big portion of it. I love that. That's cool. But, I want to create charities, and those are charities based off of things that have either affected me or affected people close to me. Mental health, there needs to be more mental health awareness. So I'd like to create, and I'm not going to get too deep into it, but like a mental health charity, COPD awareness charity. My grandmother passed away of COPD 7 years ago. So time's flying. I'm getting old.
Yeah.
And domestic abuse, stuff like that. So I would definitely like to leave a good imprint when it comes to those types of things. I don't want to say that there's one specific thing where it's like, this is the legacy I want to leave 100%. No, because I'll grow into that eventually, I'm sure. And it'll probably just happen and I won't realize it. And I have a feeling, I may be wrong on this, that those are usually the best types of legacies to be left. The ones that the person who created it had no idea that they did. Yeah. So maybe I'll grow into it and I'll be conscious of it. And if not, that's okay. But I'm confident that when I die, people won't be ashamed to talk about how I was able to assist them or what I did in the world that made them view things in a different light. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's powerful. It hit for me pretty good. Right. Yeah, not to be ashamed of who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow, that's good. Thank you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So, God, that hit me so well. It took my idea away. Yeah, I get that because it's like, for me, since I've one in 6 boys, right? I'm second to youngest, and I'll explore a little bit why that hit me so hard because I think it's beneficial. Because my legacy is the maturity project. That's my legacy, what I want to leave. But this is years and years and years of realizing that I felt there was a purpose that pulled me into life more so than just paying bills and to exist and to have a few good times or whatever, and just basically I lived because I lived and that was it. But I wanted to be more responsible for who I am so that I can make a better world that I would consider a better world is not to make it in my image as much as it is using the way that I develop myself because the tools necessary to make the life that I wanted is what the maturity project is all about. So for me being the second to youngest out of 6 boys, not all in the same house at the same time, and there's been heartache along the way. Like my brother Kevin passed before I was born. He was 3 years old. That's a real heavy burden to bear for parents.
Yeah.
And my oldest brother had cerebral palsy, so he was bedridden, so special needs, first child. My parents' plight in life, I've got so much respect for who they are and what they've gone through, and I don't have enough respect for what they really have gone through. Special person. Because I have not been able to really put myself in their life shoes until recently, and now I've got to continue on because now I have a son, to continue on putting myself in their shoes to understand the real impact of having a special needs first child, and then the third child passing from meningitis that was misdiagnosed, and to watch your 3-year-old pass that way. And then, how that dynamic affected all of us and how the whole thing went. Yeah. So being the second to youngest, I learned to pretend a lot to try to get along and get in, and to be able to just not get beat up and to be wanted to be around. Yeah. And my narrative that I lived inside of is that I don't matter. And that's where I was coming from, to try to make matter out of my life and make purpose to something. But really at first it was to fit in. It wasn't much more of a purpose other than that. So pretending came out of that. And how many years have I pretended to be somebody else so that people accepted me? And that's still being unpackaged. Just I take this education and really make it mean more in my life versus cognitively be aware of it, but make it real and make it living. So that was one that hit me hard, is that, to really just not be ashamed of who you are. Yeah, and legacy is a great way of understanding that.
Yeah, because I'll be the first to admit I'm not a perfect person. I'm far from it. Perfect is that's fake. There's no such thing as perfect, in my opinion. Anyways. Yeah. If there is, please, by all means, show me.
Yeah.
But I just if I can be the best version of myself, not for somebody else, but for myself, so I can also be better for them, and then leave that kind of imprint, then that means a lot to me. Like I'm the kind of person that will allow somebody to, I don't want to say like let their emotional baggage out on me in a negative way of like abuse me emotionally, but like somebody needs to vent to me, I'm more than willing to sacrifice that moment of whatever it is for myself to allow them to get it off their chest. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm different. I am. I know I'm not the average Joe. Like it's a joke. Like some people don't get the kind of person I am. That's okay. But I've always just felt like a different kind of person than the people I usually would surround myself with.
Yeah. Well, one thing about legacy is you can't blend in.
No.
Because nobody wants to hear the story everybody else repeated about everybody else.
No.
They want the one that makes you stand out.
Yeah.
Elon Musk doesn't stand out.
No.
Jeff Bezos doesn't stand out. I mean, he does stand out. Elon Musk stands out. You know, Gandhi stood out. You know, Genghis Khan stood out.
Yeah.
You know, it's people that are willing to say, this is my life and fuck you, I'm going to live it my way.
Yep.
You know, it's like the fuck you is to the people that are like, no, you need to be this other way.
Yeah.
The conformity argument.
I have my own guidelines. I'm not going to typically, conform to other people's guidelines of what I should be.
You won't violate your guidelines.
No,
for conformity. Mine is that I struggled with that conformity for so long. Now I'm like, this is me. And you have to accept me for who I am, because I won't lie to you to get you to want me. I won't lie to you to get you to believe I'm somebody else, because I won't take on that debt.
Yeah.
That I'm going to have to be this person for you to stick around.
Right.
Don't lie to create a debt. And that's what lying does. Yes. It creates a debt. Now, you might get money out of lying, but the debt is not money.
It's a liability debt. It's not an asset.
Yeah. So don't create debts. And that's what lying will do. So anyway, so purpose is obvious, and you definitely have it. It's just being able to have, for me, I like to be able to understand my purpose enough that my legacy is associated with that purpose, because that's the story of my purpose. Your legacy is a story of your purpose. Now, you may not have enough awareness to your purpose to be able to do a lot. Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You're where you are. You're living into something. It's just you're not articulating it enough, and you don't have the cognitive position on it just yet. But who you are as a person will bring that to your awareness. And it will be through life's actions. You're going to do things in life to be able to experience things, to make decisions in the way things are happening around you, that you're going to have something show up that really makes you shine. And that's the thing that's going to be known about you. And I already know things about you that make me go, he is a really good guy. And I'm willing to make a conversation like this for the world to be witness to, because you're a good person. And I would love to have people find inspiration in who you are to emulate into their own life in a way that makes them stand out, in a way that makes them feel that they are caring about themselves. Because when you stand out, it's because you're also caring about yourself enough to not give in to conformity.
Right.
You love yourself enough to be you and unique, and to stand in a place and be that person that's unique. You know, to where people can be like, fuck, man, that person is amazing. And they stand out for these reasons. The greatest compliment I ever received in my life, and I've received some pretty nice compliments, and I appreciate them. By all means, put your comments in the comment section about my compliments. But my friend, Dr. Frank Sessa, told me, and this is a complete surprise. There was no lead up to it or anything. He was standing at his desk, or his front counter, and I'm sitting at his standing there waiting, because I was going to go get an adjustment from him. And great friends, love this guy. He's another one with purpose. I don't know if he's fully identified that yet. And if you're watching, Frank, you're coming, buddy. You came in the show. So yeah, he looked at me and said, "Chad, you truly are your own person." And at the moment, I'm like, I'm caught up in the business world. I'm caught up in all this, but like I got rid of my car.
Yeah.
I was riding a bicycle around to get around, because I was in the starving artist phase of my life, where I was willing to push through everything and suffer financial hardship in order to become what I wanted to become. My heart time. Right. I was becoming that guy that I knew I wanted to be. So I got rid of my car, rode my bike everywhere. I participated in networking like crazy. I read like crazy. I gave up so much to become that person. And then it culminated at that moment, to recognize how all of the sacrifices I had made to become that guy was recognized in somebody I dearly respect. And he said, "Chad, you truly are your own person." That was the best compliment. But that's also a marked moment where my legacy became more and more clear, that it was there. It was something there. Purpose was going to give me my view of my legacy. Right. So that was something that was there for that. You will have that moment. I'm certain of it. You're too curious not to have it show up. Yeah. Now, somebody's probably going to give you the keys to see it. But like Frank did with me to say, Chad, you truly are your own person. Because I don't want to be a copycat. I don't want to blend into the crowd. I want to stand out. But my social anxiety was so that I blended in.
Yeah,
As a child, what I got over was the desire to blend in. So the social anxiety made it. I didn't want to stand out.
Yeah. So for me, I don't know why I keep mentally coming back to this, but you know what the Moose Party was?
The what?
Moose Party.
The Moose Party? No.
I think it was Teddy Roosevelt. Or I think it was Teddy Roosevelt.
The better of the two?
Yes, the better of the two.
Although people would argue about that, but they don't realize the consequences of FDR. What is it? Yeah, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
I'm an American at heart.
Yes.
I fucking love this
Patriot
country. 4th of July, when I was in Greece, they don't celebrate that shit over there.
Of course.
It's an American holiday.
Yeah.
I was rooting in the tootin', baby. Like, that is my thing. I don't care. I was getting weird looks. Like, I love America.
Yeah.
And
same here.
one night, my best friend Mike, his wife Jenica, and I were having a conversation, and I am sick and tired of the state that our country is in. I'm not pushing it 100% just solely politically, just in general.
Yeah.
The mindset that people have.
The maturity.
Yeah.
It's a maturity of the people.
And so
it's being stripped from us.
Maybe my purpose is to create my own Moose Party one day and do what Teddy did. And because he swayed the votes in such a way that it was like, oh shit, to the Republicans and Democrats. Yeah. Maybe that's my purpose. Maybe to create change on a nationwide scale one day. I don't know. But it would be cool. If I could do that for America, I 100% would do it.
Join me with it then.
I'm not going to get assassinated in the process, though. Like, I'm good on that. But
they attempted to assassinate.
Yeah.
He finished the speech after he was shot.
Yeah.
And then made him not beat him up too much. The guy had shot him because he wanted to talk to him after the speech was over while he was shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a badass.
Savage.
Oh, Theodore Roosevelt. Badass.
Yeah, there were 0 fucks left in his bag.
Oh, I loved him. His history, his legacy.
So
amazing. There's plenty of people like, he's racist, whatever. I don't care. You use your isms and ists and all that shit to create the division of righteousness to pull you away from unifying and coming to the table with common conversations that we could all grow from. You keep your ists and you keep your party separations and all the rest of that nonsense. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to speak to me. I'm going to stand out. The same as that. You have to be willing to stand out and face the fear of rejection and attack.
Yeah, I brought that up to just people around me. I don't want to name names. And I kind of laugh at it. And it's like inside I'm almost kind of serious. I'm like, I can do it. You only need to be a U.S. citizen and be 35 years old or something.
Yeah, to run for president.
29, 6 years. So 2 terms from now, technically I could run. It's not to say I'm going to win. I don't. But
well, that's living into a purpose. That's for sure.
So even if I didn't win, the point is if I campaigned, I would be able to get my thoughts out on a much larger scale than I currently can. So maybe that's what it is. Again, I don't know, and I may not do it. Who knows? 6 years, 8 years is a long time from now.
Yep.
But I think it would be cool to do that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's community. That's business. Those two combined are politics.
Yeah.
So
I hate the word politics.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. Well, it's been bastardized for many, many, many generations.
Yes.
It's something that we've all tried to avoid, but we need it. It's a necessary evil because we do have to have leaders, and that's what politicians are, leaders. But unfortunately, the business got in front of the leadership because now the leaders are leading out of their own agendas instead of for the people. They're leading for their pocketbooks and whoever it is that's invested in them financially, or the power struggle that's there. So join me in that, dude. I mean, I'm up for it. And I'm into it. This is what I do with this, but my modality isn't through politician. Right. My modality is through education and inspiration. That's my method. And like Tony Robbins, right? Like Paul Chek is in the fitness side of things. I want, hell, I don't give a damn. We've got Jordan Peterson. I intellectually idolize the gentleman. I think he's amazing in that world. And cognitively, my maturity is mentored through him as well. He's a beautiful human being, and I don't care what anybody has to say about him. I don't come from ignorance with him. I come from looking at the bigger picture, from assessing the 8 different areas of maturity the best that I can without knowing them directly. I do this for everybody, by the way. That's how I can find out if somebody's actually more in it for themselves versus for other people. And then what can I extract? I don't take them out from study because they're in it for themselves. I look at what attributes are they able to accomplish and what kind of feats can they do with that particular profile of maturity, and then what can I learn from them, but also prevent myself from becoming them.
Right.
Because we're all human beings. We could become Hitler any day. I don't want to become that. I don't want to become Stalin, Mao. I don't want to become Biden. Any of those people, to me, they're all dictators. So with that, it's not my goal in life. My goal in life is to learn from them, but not become them. So, anyway, but that's part of that legacy thing. And so I say, join me in that. It's what modality are we going to take? You may not take politics, or you might. I'll support you. Yeah. I definitely will support you to the degrees that I do support. And we would talk about anything that I didn't, but I don't know of anything I don't support right now. Right. But when it comes up, that's the kind of friend I am, is that I would tell you what I disagree with you, because I'm not a sycophant, nor do I want to make sycophants. Right. A sycophant blends in. I want people to stand out. Right. Because your perspectives matter to me. So with the community thing, the one we really haven't touched on so far is really sexuality. Yeah. But we have in its own way, because how you be as a person. It's just to make sure I'm very clear for everybody. Sexuality is not sex. Right. Sexuality and maturity is about the whole of you and the way that you express yourself to others. Even the bonding that guys go through. And this is a challenging thing, because most people will qualify all kinds of things. This is what my education teaches, is that your sexuality is even the way that you bond with people. 100%. Like for me being a heterosexual man and you being a heterosexual man, we still bond through our sexuality that we're both straight men. Right. And what does that come with is the profile of what straight men have inside of the range of who they can be. Because otherwise you shift into a different sexual profile. Your sexuality be a different thing. So it's that helps us create those bonds, but there's also the expressions of who you are inside of that, because it has its limitations. There's its costs and its benefits. A heterosexual man does not have homosexual man's behaviors, but they may have normally. Yeah, right. But they may have trait values, the humor, the interactions. It's to the line that you actually have where sex becomes the thing, and that's where those things. But the sex having its thing has its attributes that lead to that. Flirting and things like that are all associated with it, and that's interactions with intent. Right. Flirt is an interaction with intent. Right. So that's what the sexuality the values are, because it's the clothing you choose to wear. If you wore, rhinestone and the neck, handkerchief, or shorty shorts that are cut off, or rainbow flags and all the rest of that stuff, but you're still a very straight man, very heterosexual, it would be a conflicting understanding of your sexuality that you're demonstrating to community based off the way you dress. You keep people guessing. Well, it would keep people guessing. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying don't keep people guessing. I'm just saying to use that as a way of understanding sexuality and our physical expressions of it. So it's a topic that has a lot of depth, but at the same time, it really has been discussed a lot, but not within the framing of calling it sexuality. Right. Because you wanting to have the masculine aspect like Teddy Roosevelt, American badass, that was a very masculine man. Masculinity is sexuality, right? And femininity is sexuality. Right. The lack thereof either one of those also is sexuality, but it's a vacancy, which makes it more likely somebody's manipulatable. Right. That's another thing about maturity, is the more mature you are, the less likely you are to be manipulated, especially by somebody who's less mature than you. So if they're more mature than you, they have more of a capacity to manipulate you, because they have different types of experiences. You'll see them as an authority in, and you typically give more of who you are and your autonomy to an authority. Yes. And if you give that up, what happens on the back end of that is you now become a devotee, but now they can say what they want and sway you, can manipulate you. Yeah. And I'm not saying, not all manipulations are negative. I'll create moments where it's a undesirable experience for somebody enough to teach a lesson, but only to do it enough that I know it's within the safety that they would still stay stable, and I don't damage a relationship. Yeah. I'm not that overly manipulative, but if somebody needs me to not talk whenever they expect me to talk, that can be a form of that. Because now I'm making them sit in that vacancy of my communication that makes them think about their actions or something like that. That's a lesson that you're offering. We do this all the time, but most people are like, that's manipulative. That's what bad people do. No, it's not. You teach children that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Why not make that an adult model, not just what you do with children?
Right.
But do it in a way that doesn't mean that I'm trying to hurt you purposely because I just feel like you owe me something.
Right.
It could be I'm hurting you purposely because I need you to see something
Mm-hmm.
that you're not seeing. And if you don't see it now, this lesson's going to continue to repeat itself until it becomes worse. And it may be out of my ability to support you.
Right. You're going to learn the hard way.
Yes. But I'm not hurting you because I don't love you. I'm hurting you because I do love you.
Right.
But that's another big conversation, not to go too far in, but that's all. You can use that through the concepts of sexuality because if that person's intimately related to you, wife or husband or whomever,
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever that is, you can still give those lessons. We actually do that a lot, especially earlier phases of the relationship where if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to take this particular degree of affection away from you. I'm upset.
Yeah.
You've upset me. Figure it out. Or I need you to change this.
Mm-hmm.
But those are sex and violence types of framing of relationships. You can progress through that
Mm-hmm.
and mature yourself to the point that's not a method you use anymore to get your partner to be the kind of person you want them to be.
Right.
What I would say is if they're not the kind of person that you want them to be out of skill sets, you can help them develop the skill sets. But if it's associated with what they have as a purpose in life or value system in life, but don't make them become the person that they're not because you like some sort of specific attributes about them.
Right.
But you don't care for them as the person. You care for them by the idea. And I talk about that in the loving me for me or loving me for the idea of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
You love me for who I am, not for my idea of me
Well,
or your idea of me.
yeah, no, that makes sense. I've also said before that a lot of people want to get married, but they don't want to do marriage.
Yeah,
That's
that's a good way of putting it.
Everybody loves the whole idea of getting married. Or not everybody. A lot of people like the idea of getting married, but then they don't take into consideration all the, the dark sides of their partner they may have to see throughout their marriage, or the sides that maybe they didn't really take into consideration while they were dating. Because when you're married versus when you're dating, you're probably going to see that person evolve a little bit over time. And so, I just, I've been married 2 years, so there's things that I notice with my wife, and it's like, okay, that's fine. No biggie. I don't care. It's not a problem. It's just different. This isn't what I experienced when we were dating with you.
Yeah.
But the dynamics changed.
Absolutely.
We're together for, forever, technically. So I'm going to see you evolve differently than you did when we were just,
what a great
together.
subject. What a great subject. We won't have time for that one today.
No,
we've been
fine.
recording now for roughly, I want to say it's 2 hours.
Oh, shit.
So we still have to do another one after this.
That's fine. Yeah.
So this is a great starting point. By the way, again, this is a 2-part video. You have part 1, which is the sober conversation where we go over specific subjects. Part 2 is our intent to go over those same subjects again under the influence. Now we're going to go to lunch. We'll probably have a drink at lunch, but not drinking and driving, all that shit or anything of impairment. What my goal is that we're going to, like, when we get back, I'll have a few more libations. There's a refrigerator out here by the pool that's got some beer in it. So I'll go out and grab that and I'll enjoy that for a bit. And then we'll open up with a level of a buzz pretty much. And then I'll continue to enjoy and we move through this and, we'll see how that conversation goes the second time around. So, all right, we're going to be back. Again, so that the first closing is, this is the Maturity Project. This is my buddy and my co-host today, Joe Dipaola.
We'll go with that.
But never say it right. Dipaola. I never say his last name right. We've been friends now for well over 2 years.
Yes.
And I probably will still do this later in life too.
Joe Dip.
Joe Dip. Yeah. It's too close to Joe Dirt.
Yeah. Great movie though. Love that guy.
Yeah. This is the Maturity Project, and share the video with the people in your life that you want to break the ice with, that this is going to be meaningful, and then start a conversation of meaning. Come back after this for part 2, and we're going to do this conversation again.
That'll be interesting.
All right, let's get to it.
Oh, that was good.